Well, hi everybody. This is our industrial information systems final project. And in our group, it includes me, I'm Luciana. We have Ferris, Carter, and Kelsey, who also helped contribute to this project. So for our project, we decided to use the Sequila database because of its realistic DVD rental business model. And we thought it would be like a fun topic to explore since we all kind of know how that works. Like growing up, we had Family Video and like Blockbusters and everything. And we decided to use that system. And the overall database it includes tables called like customer, rental, inventory, film, and payment, which are all pretty self-explanatory, which I thought helped a lot with this project being able to like understand what each table and its contents were. Here's a picture, it's kind of blurry of our like database and how everything looks, which we used a lot when we were coding everything. And some tables have keys like the customer ID and rental ID and stuff like that, which was very easy to understand, which made the process a lot easier to be able to come up with ideas of what we wanted our forms to be like. And then on our Excel file, we have 5 sheets, so each of them is all the requirements. So we have our dashboard first, we have a new customer form and a new rental form, and then we have updating a customer address form, and then a search rental form, which we all thought were pretty helpful in like the rental process of the employees that might be working there and being able to like update the database without having to go in there. We're able to do it through the Excel file and like replicate how it might be in the actual business setting, which was pretty fun to explore. All right, so this is introducing our Excel workbook, which we have 5 sheets on. And our first sheet that I'll be explaining to you is our dashboard sheet, which is kind of like a home screen for everything that may happen within the other sheets, because this is the only sheet that does not include a form where you can update or edit anything going on within the database. As in the other sheets, those ones all have forms which can affect this home screen. So here we have in the green our instructions on how to use it for the users to make it a little bit easier to understand. So it's kind of a place just to come back to see any updates that may happen, like I said, based on all the other forms within the sheets. And we have our 3 columns here, which all indicate things that may be changing within those forms. And then we also have our update button, which is how you get our 3 columns to be updated and to show the most recent information. And then we also have our this little last updated section that shows the time and the date of when someone might have pressed that button. So like in the business world, you're able to see how that like is affected if you weren't the one and if there's multiple people working on this sheet, like at like a DVD rental system. So introducing our code, um, we have up here our code that links our database to our Excel file, and then our dashboard sheet is called dashboard. And then we have our 3 metrics. So we have new customers within the last 30 days, and here's our code that has the query that indicates how we got that information from our database. So that query counts the customers whose create date was within the last 30 days of when our button was pressed. And then that'll update every time you press the button, and it'll clear the contents of the previous one. And then for our metric 2, we have our most active customers within the last 30 days. This one also has our query from our database. All 3 of these do. And it counts the customers who made rentals within the last 30 days. And it'll say how many active customers there are and count that within our column when you press the updated dashboard button. And then we have our 3rd metric, which is most rented movies, which this one we used our join statement to join rental, inventory, and film within our query to find the most rented title film. Once again, it also clear the contents every time you press the button. And then finally, we have our code for our timestamp so that anytime someone presses that button, we can see when that was last updated if you weren't the one that did it, so that it's clear to everybody, all the employees, like when that was last updated. So then I'll go ahead and press it for you so you can all see the changes that happen. So last time I pressed it was earlier before this hour, but whoops. All right, so it also pops up a message box to show that it's successful. And like you can see here, this got updated and this time is also updated to when I did it, which is 11:52 a.m. So that's how our dashboard system works.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I will be explaining the adding a customer and rental forms. One of my biggest challenges when doing this was researching how to get the information put into the form into the actual database itself instead of just having it be displayed on Excel. And another challenge I faced was trying to get all the forms to relate back to the dashboard because I wanted this to be like all of them relate to one another for the employees that would actually work at this rental place. And our dashboard has a lot to do with adding new customers and rentals because I felt that was the most effective for the employees that would work at this rental company. So diving into this form focuses on the customer table, and I wanted to add this form because I feel like adding a new customer would be one of the most common tasks in this company at the store. And the two foreign keys here are going to be the address ID and the store ID. So for an example, we'll just put myself. Let me show you how to add this. Address ID is a number. Store ID, we'll just put one. So then when you click Add Customer, it'll say New Customer added successfully. Click OK, and you'll see that it changed over here. It's displayed, and then when you want to clear that form, you just click Clear, and it's all good there. And to further show that it was actually added to the database, I created this query in MySQL and just run it, and it'll show the most recent customer added with their customer ID, store ID, first name, all of that. And going back to that form, I would like to show that you can only put letters for first name and last name. If you put a number, that will pop up for both. Email I left alone because an email could be numbers or letters. For address ID, if you type in a number or letter instead of a number, invalid address ID will pop up. And same if you put in, so the only store IDs are 1 or 2. If you put in a 5, please enter 1 or 2. And now I would like to move in to the actual code itself. So we're going to go in design mode. And I want to just show the form here. One of my main issues when it came to the VBA code was this whole part right here, because at first I did not have any of this and I went on to all of this code and it wasn't working for me. And I realized I kind of needed to initialize all the variables because store ID needs to be the text store ID, like what is put into the text. And I also researched this trim function, which I found super helpful because if the user input like a space before or after like something in the text box, it'll still search for what it's supposed to search for. The trim just takes out the spaces. And then I want to talk about these queries right here. This is where I said I had a challenge before, which was like putting in the new information into the actual database, which I just insert into and I put the customer table and then all the values of that table. And then the values I put here were just empty. So it would be whatever that was put into the form. And the one now was so it would show what was just put in. And then I wanted to make it a little bit neater, so I put SQL equals before I put it, and then I was able to just put SQL for the query database. And the query down here, that's just the select from, that's so it will show up on the Excel spreadsheet, so it shows that you successfully did that. And these down here were basically just what I just showed you. It's the code for how to get just letters entered or just numbers entered, which I thought was very important and very helpful. I would like to move on to the new rental form. The second form, the new rental form, just focuses on the rental table, and I added this form when I realized that the way I had the dashboard set up was only getting changed in one area. For example, if we move to the dashboard and I click Update, oh, I'm still in design mode, and you click Update, it only shows the new customer that was changed, and I didn't want just the new customer to be able to change. I wanted the active customers to change, and I wanted the most rented movie and number of rentals to change. So I just wanted the dashboard to have a better representation of what the store was actually going to have accomplished on a day-to-day basis, and I thought new rental would obviously be the #1 task. So to the left, the first thing I did was add all of the rentals in the store. because when you click on the actual button, it'll ask for an inventory ID. So this film ID is the inventory ID. So when you find the movie you want, you can go on there, find the inventory ID, and type it in. So let's take my customer ID is 601 inventory ID. Let's see, I wanted to do Alabama Devil. I would put in 9 and staff ID. Your only two options are 1 and 2 because those were the only two staff IDs in our database. So let's say 2. When you click submit rental, it'll say rental recorded successfully. And to make sure that it actually was recorded successfully, we'll come into my SQL and I'll go into the other query that I made, which was very similar to the first, just again, it'll show you what happens. So you click that and it'll tell you what was rented at what time, what staff member, what customer ID, what inventory ID. So it just shows that it actually was added to the database. And again, you can click clear. And now when you go to dashboard, active customers will change and most rented movie will change if it's another movie, but obviously I picked a different movie that wasn't the most rented, so that will not change. If I did Academy Dinosaur, which was just one, so I'll just put in like something random. Submit rental, okay. You can clear it or get out of here. You go back to dashboard, you update it, number of rentals will change because it was Academy Dinosaur. So going into the actual code here, I want to go, this is the query that I use to get all the films selected to be shown on the dashboard. And here I did distinct because when I first did it, it was showing every single rental that we have, which was the same. It would be the same like movie title over and over again, and it was kind of having an error because there were too many. So to fix that problem, I just did distinct to show one of every single title that we had, just so you could see it. And if something were to happen in the future, I think there's a way to we could figure out another form to kind of show that there are more, or you could do a whole nother code to go into like how many titles we have of that, etc. So going into the actual code here, again, I really liked that trim function, so I added that again. And this is basically almost the exact same as the add a customer code. So I pretty much copied that, which was really, really helpful because the customer code took a lot of time. This form was kind of like a last minute thing that I added because I, again, was just like going through everything. I wanted to make sure the dashboard was good. Um, Something I do wish I could change though here, it'll say less than, or the 611. That is the customer ID. So our database originally only had 605 customers, but then we added the customer, like add a customer form, which was problematic because then there was more customer IDs. And I did a lot of research and I really couldn't figure out how to like make this number go up with it. So I kind of just like upped it a little to 611. But like say I added a new customer and it's 612, I wouldn't be able to get them to rent a new movie, which I really couldn't figure out. And I researched a lot on how to change that. And that is something I would like to look into more or research more in the future, or that's something I wish I could have changed. And I didn't realize it was a problem until this project was basically done. And I really wish that wasn't an issue. But moving into the query, this again is almost the exact same as the first one. It's just focusing on the rental table. So it'll put all the things and then you put in, it'll like the now things or the now commands are about what they put into the form. So then that is then added into the actual database. And I didn't put it being added on our actual Excel sheet because I wanted to have those lists of rentals because I thought that was more helpful. And this is where I put the 1 or 2. So then you could only put in 1 or 2. Say if you went on this form again. So staff, if you put 3, you can only do 1 or 2 because again, our database only has 1 or 2 of the staff members and there's one from each store. And that pretty much describes both of the add a row forms. Again, I added 2 because I wanted it to relate more to our dashboard, and I just think it kind of made the entire company come all together.
Hello everyone, my name is Ferris and today I'm going to be explaining the update function. So for our database, we picked change address to be our update function. So if a customer wants to change his address, he would come to this location. He would click change address. A user form would pop off saying he should enter his customer ID, and then he would enter his new address. Then there's a clear button and update button. When the user clicks the update button, the subroutine is triggered. It first grabs the value from the text boxes that you put in here and uses the trim function to clear up any extra spaces. Next, it runs the input validation. If either field is blank, or if the values are out of the range, our range is 611. So if you put anything above that, an immediate response, like, let me just show a quick example. If I put 611, that would work. 612, this would pop off saying invalid customer ID. If the values are valid, let's say if I put his customer ID is 1, and then I want the new address to be, instead of 111, I want it to be 100. Click update address, and this would show off saying that it did work. If the values are valid, the subroutine builds a dynamic SQL update query to change the customer's address in the MySQL database. It sends the query using our customer query BD function, which handles the connection behind the scenes. Let me just show the code real quick. So if you click here, as I mentioned, the trim function, which is over here, the trim function that would remove any spaces. If you have any space in the code that would not work, it would do it for you automatically. That would just tell you that you should enter a valid number. And then if you enter any text, that would also not work. And then this is the data validation. So if you enter anything above 611, which is our maximum, if you enter anything above that, that would not work. A message box would pop off saying to fill in a valid number. And that's it for update functions. Hello, everyone. It's me again. I just wanted to briefly go over HTML and CSS and what we did with the website. So for the website, I handled the HTML structure and part of the CSS styling. One cool thing I did in the HTML was use the code and pre-tags to neatly display all of our SQL and VBA code. It made the technical parts of this project easy to read and added a professional feel to the page. In the CSS, we went with a blockbuster theme design, navy background with bold, yellow, and gold colors. I styled the headers with custom spacings and underlines, like the HR underline, just to make it readable and easy to look at. And then one of my favorite touches with the CSS, which I made the green glowing effect on a code blocks. I used line text on a black background and added a text shadow to make the code look like it was glowing. Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, so today I'll be explaining the search rentals form part of our project. So to start out, the user is given instructions here at the bottom, which say click the search rentals button to show rentals in different ways, and they can search by using their customer ID, movie title, customer name, and the date. So to start out, we would click this button, and the user is given a drop-down box here. So in this drop-down box, they're given customer name, movie title, customer ID, and date. And then we have a clear button and a search button here as well. So for example, let's put in the customer name. I will use the last name of Brown here. So search. And then of course, here are all the last names of Brown. If you want to get more specific, like let's say a customer ID, just by looking up one specific person, we could look up, let's say 76. And this would relate to the customer name of Irene Price. So let's look up 76, search. And here are all of the movies that Irene Price has checked out in the past. And then let's move along to movie title. So let's say I want to look up the movie title of Jason Trapp. So Jason Trapp, type that in the search. And here are all of the customers that have checked out the movie Jason Trapp. And then of course the rental date. And yeah, moving along to the date section of this, let's say we want to look up the date of August 23rd, 2005. We would start out by typing in 2005, do the month of August, and then the date, 23rd, and search. So Here, of course, we're given all of the movies checked out on that specific date. And then, of course, in this section, it's given the first name, last name, the movie title, and then the date. So that's kind of just a quick overview of how the search rental form works. Next, I'll be getting into the code section of it. So moving along, I will now walk through what happens when someone clicks the search button on the form. So the code is basically organized into 4 main parts. We have the input setup, the validation, building the SQL query, and finally showing the results down here at the bottom. So to start out, we have the input setup up at the top. First, we store the user selections. We grab the option that they choose in the dropdown, like customer name or movie title, and whatever they typed into the search box. So we also set up a few variables that we'll use later to build the search and store results. So for example, here's a few variables. We have filter, RS, record set, tool, term, and SQL that we all initialize first. So second, moving on to the next part, we have input validation. Before we run anything, we check that both fields are filled out. If the user either left one blank, we show a message to stop the code. Then depending on what type of search that they're doing, we do a quick check to make sure that the input is valid. For example, names shouldn't have numbers, dates need to be in the right format, and customer IDs should be valid numbers under a certain limit, such as 611 right here. Moving on to building the actual SQL query. Once the input is good, we build the actual SQL query. This part changes based on what search tool is selected. It adds a filter to match what the user typed in and then joins our 4 tables: the rental, customer, inventory, and film. So we can pull all the rental info that we need. We only return the top 100 results sorted by the most recent rentals. So you can see right here. Our final part of the code is running the query and showing the results. We pass the SQL into a function called query_db right here. This connects to the database and gets all the results. We then call another sub called display data, and this writes everything straight into the Excel sheet so the user can see it in cell A2. So in one click, this button validates the input, builds a flexible query, connects to the database, and displays the data, making it fast and simple for employees to find rental info.